Hello everyone, I'm here in Almont, Michigan today, and we're going to look at something I think is kind of interesting. And we're in the park. Let's spin around here. We're in the little village community park in Almont, Michigan, and today we're tracking down the history of an abandoned branch line of the Port Huron and Southwest Railroad, later to be known as the Marquette Railroad. And here in this park, we're going to see if we can find any remnants. I came here today to look for remnants of the railroad. I know I lived in Almont for a little while. I know where the railroad grade ran through, and we are actually standing on the railroad grade right now. If we look ahead here, we can see as this pedestrian pathway winds and curves a little bit through those trees up ahead. Let's see if we can zoom in. Zooming in. That path right through there is the railroad right-of-way that's now used as a bicycle and pedestrian path. And right where we're standing here would have been where the bridge crossed over the little creek right here. There's a little tiny little creek about 2-3 feet deep that bubbles and meanders through the countryside here in southern Lapeer County. And I was looking for the edges here. I wanted to see if there was any remnants at all of the original railroad bridge over the creek. But, I'm not seeing anything. Here, let me see. We're looking down here into the water. There's no signs of any old girders or beams or footings that I can see right now here anywhere. And nothing here really looks to be particularly old. This all looks fairly modern. But the railroad bridge itself was abandoned in January of 1942, and the tracks were torn up immediately after that. So, it's been almost 73 years since everything was tore out here. So, I guess we can't expect to have too much left over when things have been modified and adapted to its current use as a park. There's not a lot left, but I'm still looking down here. Maybe come back here this summer with a metal detector and do some detecting down here in these hills and riversides here on each side. I have a feeling there might well be some residue or things left over from the old days back around here if we looked hard enough. And the other thing I found totally fascinating, and I swear this wasn't a setup of any sort. I'm walking up here to the bridge today to go across, and I look down here at the foot of the bridge where the footpath is. What do we see here? Look at this. Someone has left some Lionel type train tracks here. It looks like 027 gauge Lionel train tracks abandoned here at the foot of the bridge that used to be a railroad bridge 75 years ago. And it just makes me wonder, did someone know that and put that here as kind of a tribute? Or did somehow or other that just randomly get tossed aside right there? Such a strange coincidence, kind of boggles the mind. And who would do that? So, here's the coming going. If we look this way, we'll walk a little bit this way. There's one more thing I want to show you while we're here. We're right in the middle of where the railroad bed used to be right now. The Pere Marquette, or Port Huron and Southwestern branch, as it was called, ran from Port Huron to Almont, passing through Memphis, Burrillville, Allington, and a bunch of other small towns and communities that aren't there anymore. The main cargo was agricultural goods and lumber. Of course, every little town mostly had a grain elevator. Almont was no different. We're going to go up and see that in just a second here. And there was also a turntable here, because this was the end of the line. It was never extended. It began as a narrow gauge railroad. I believe it was 36-inch, and was later expanded to, let's see, in 1882 it started, and it was expanded a few years later, probably about 30 or 40 years later, to a standard gauge railroad line after Pere Marquette purchased it. And then it was abandoned in 1942 due to lack of use and losing money. So we're walking right down the railroad grade. Now we're going to take a break here. I'm going to pause the video. We're going to resume it over by the grain elevator. Alright, this set of buildings here was the original Almont grain elevator and station stop for the railroad. Maybe that particular part there might not have been, but here we get into some really old buildings here. And we can see that these most assuredly were part of it, with the tower and the shifter and the support beams up there. Look at it. This is a beautiful old building. Just something about it that says rural Michigan. Alright, we're on the back side of where the tracks would have been. We're going to turn here into the little driveway. This building here is actually an old building itself, but was recently remodeled. Train tracks crossing over Van Dyke Highway, M53, and right where that little monument is in the Veterans Park there was the turntable where they would turn the engine around and go back the other way. Now I've got one more Almont thing to show you here. Now, Almont was a stop on the Detroit Interurban Railroad line also. And I believe the tracks may have came through right through here where Branch Street is. If you look right through that gap there, it just looks like the kind of gap that may have been a railroad bed at one time. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I haven't been able to find any detailed close-up maps of the old railroad in Almont. The other option, which is just as likely, is this bridge here over the river, and it, you know, this looks like it really could be it too, because there's a bridge over the river and it seems to extend on beyond the bridge toward Romeo, which is exactly where the tracks would have came from. And then let's see, if it would have went north, it was an urban railroad, so it could share the roadway with car tires and tracks. It could have went up this way and unloaded up here. We'll have to do some more research on that and see where the Almont Interurban came out at. Well, I've not been able to locate any particular area I can say with 100% confidence is the old Interurban Railroad right-of-way. But we're going to close this video out with a tour of downtown Almont here after this police car goes by. And we're going to have a look at the small town Michigan here, downtown Almont. The commercial district, both sides of the street. At one point there was a hotel here on this street corner 100 years ago or so. And in the early 90s there was a fire over on the southeast corner that destroyed 4 very old business buildings, but fortunately they were rebuilt. It's not just an empty lot now. Up here on the left is the Almont Historical Society building, which is a really cute old wood frame structure that's been restored and renovated. It looks really nice. You know, let's see, it's the white one on the end here. And if you have interest in local history, all these small towns in rural Michigan, just about every one has a historical society and a museum of some sort, so it's well worth your time to check them out and come pay a visit and learn more about the small town history. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Goodbye, Almont.